The sixth president of Federally Employed Women is Mae Morris. Mae was a federal women's program manager for the Environmental Protection Agency. She served as national president from 1976 to 1978.
I work for John F. Kennedy Space Center in Florida, part of NASA, and our FWPM at Kennedy Space Center, she had just heard about FEW getting started in Washington, you see, and she called several of us women who are sort of were in the middle, don't you see? We were in nines, GS7s and nines. And they thought if we call those, we could get people down from under, okay. And so she called a meeting and said she'd heard this, and if they worked with management, they could do more. And that's true. I found that to be very true at Kennedy Space Center. So once I got involved, we started a chapter there, Space Coach chapter. And once we got started there, we became very involved, but members, I always urge members to become very involved in their chapter. Take on a leadership role, okay? And then they will feel themselves bloom and blossom. They won't have knocking knees anymore. They'll be able to speak extemporaneously, you know, or with a 3x5 card and a bullet, you know, to stay in the theme of things and in line. When I was national president, it was from 76 to 78, and they had one-year terms. And so I did the first year, and I wanted to run the second time so that I could make closure and, you know, on some of the initiatives that I had started, or we as an organization started. When I became national president, I was right behind Janice Mendenhall, who had established a wonderful pattern and of communication with the chapters and things like that. And I continued on that. I used the same pattern, except I embellished on it and stretched it out. You know, I did letters to the chapter presidents about once a week, you know, telling them what I was doing and what I had planned, what was, you know, my travels, where I was going to install a new chapter and things like that. So I think that I embellished and we achieved good communication between the chapters. We published the Freedom of Information Act. Now, I did not write that, but one of the members did, and we published it. I wrote and we published at FEW the ABCs of starting a chapter, how to run a chapter, how to run a meeting, and so forth. And we did that. And we testified before Congress. I testified on flex time. It was not in existence then. And I testified later on the Family Leave Act, which is, I testified also on reductions in force where veterans were getting double just if they were in. They never saw combat or anything. I said that combat veterans should get the full credit of 5 points if they were having reductions in force across the country, but that they should not get, you know, the 5 points if they did all of their work and all of their enlistment at, say, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and never got out of the country. But that we should compete on an even basis with the veterans on the payroll, federal payroll. Some of the problems, but they were not, we handled them in-house and very quiet to the chest, you know. There's not a lot of endearment from, say, personnel or management. You know, they back then thought of us as bra burners, okay? So you had to get them to hang in, you know, don't let them close, because it's too hard to, within a chapter, it's too hard to get it started again. Never let them close. And boost them up and help them in whatever problems they have. But we tried to make sure that we were inclusive to the employees, and we even tried to encourage men to belong to FEW. And I always said it takes a very strong man to belong to an organization that is labeled as a women's organization. I think we've become very diversified, and it has become a very inclusive organization. And that's for the good of all of us, because we are all children of the Father, and we are all, we believe in, all of us believe in one God. And so that's been good for us, and you don't get to know people from other groups, be it Spanish, African American, or whatever, unless you get to know some of those people, and that helps a lot too. But grow money. Don't deplete the organization. Back when I was in office, the truth is we all, during that era, we all paid our own way to everything, okay? We were not supported by our agencies then. That later became something that members were able to get to. And so grow money, and also make it a point for the chapter leadership to work with the management, wherever it is. And whatever you propose to management, make it so that it's good, and ask for the world. You know, the earth and the territory between the earth and the moon, and then the moon, okay? They're not gonna give you everything, but be the first one should be okay. You know, if you knew when you made the proposal that you'd be glad to settle for A, okay? But anyway, you'll get some of that, and then make that agency look good. I had said before is to grow money. Mm-hmm. Well, how do you grow money? You can't keep depending on retirees from the government to give to the organization, because they have other priorities, okay, and especially if they're retired. But I would say that to work with younger people, to get them involved in leadership, and make sure that whatever is around, like in most areas, they'll have Society of Women Engineers chapter, okay? Get those people in, and get the African American groups and the Spanish American groups involved, and try to reach their young people and get them involved in the organization, and keep them busy. If you ever have a critic, give them a job. And they won't criticize you anymore. But I would say grow money, because you can never have too much, and you need it to sustain yourself. You can't go from year to year. You need to have a year and a half of operating funds in investments.